All right, in this video, I want to cover one of our new use cases that we added with our EIA or Evergreen Instance Analyzer version 2. We call this our ITIL maturity kind of assessment. I should mention, and I will highlight this, that at this point we're focused on kind of incident management, but we are going to extend this to the other process areas of ITIL. But I will cover that in a little more detail as we get into this. So first of all, kind of how you activate this is you go to the settings page, you go to your content packs, and if you're on version 2, you should see in ITIL maturity a content pack in your list. Now you may see an option here where it says request entitlement. And the way that works is we're basically setting up to where we want you to request it. We'll talk to you about what your goals and objectives are with this, and then we'll entitle that for you to download and install. But let me cover kind of if it's once it's installed in your environment, kind of how you can utilize this. So just to highlight kind of a little bit behind the curtains on this, first of all, you will see once it's been activated, you'll have a new item to start a review here. We'll cover that in a moment. But let me go look at the rule group and kind of highlight some of the pieces and parts that surround this use case. So first of all, there are a number of rules. Now most of the rules, as we'll kind of look at here in a moment, cover looking at process-based kind of metrics and whether or not they're at a certain threshold or below a certain threshold, as well as looking at kind of how the assessment information is compiled and whether or not those scores are below kind of a CMI best practice of 3 or below that. But the other things to highlight, so there is, I mentioned the record producer. You can go look and see what that record producer is, which has kind of a set of unique kind of information about going after and getting the ITIL assessment detailed and kind of defining who the assessment users are and kind of that map of which users are going to assess which process areas as part of this. So that's a lot of what that record producer is doing. And then the big part is, you'll see there's kind of an assessment aspect to this rule or this use case of sending out assessments or surveys to the recipient or the assessment individuals that you designate through the process. In this place, you'll see it's currently set up to just incident management related kind of questions to be assessed. Again, we're going to extend this to, you'll see kind of problem, change, service level agreements, right, service level management, kind of all kind of in their own separate kind of category that you could then send assessments out to different people for those different kind of process areas. But for now, we're starting with incident management as kind of our basis. The other thing that's a little unique about this rule group is we do have metric scripts associated to this. So you will see a number of these if I were to go look for rule groups. Contains ITIL. You'll see there's 11 different ones here, and you'll see they cover things like getting the customer satisfaction score, getting your first call resolution rate, getting the percentage of linked incidents linked to change, right? Various things. And I should mention with this, in terms of tuning this to your needs, right? There are a number of ways you can adjust these. Some of them have some properties kind of built into the scripts to say, do I only want to show kind of incidents that have been opened in the last 90 days as part of my kind of metric script kind of threshold, right, in terms of returning its different values. All right, let's go through and kind of start one of these just to show kind of how the mechanics of it work. So again, this is where if we have multiple process areas defined in the future, what you're going to get is more of a checklist here of choosing which of the process areas do you want to be assessed as part of this kind of review. In this case, we just have incident management, so it's kind of checking that as the only default, but we've kind of set this up for the future to have more than one process area selected as part of this step. So you go to next step, and this is where you define per process area which recipients you want to have, in this case incident management only, but I'm going to go and just choose myself for now, right, and I'll add another one here for kind of a EIA viewer. Next step, confirming here's my 2 people I want to assess incident management, and I've got a 7-day kind of window for this. Kind of prompts me into a page where I can kind of make a final decision here. Do I want to add, adjust users, remove the individuals that I have for my assessments, or do I want to send these out? Right, so now I'm going to send these out. So I've got 2 surveys that have been sent out. Right, the first one kind of goes to me. Right, again, due in 7 days. I can start this review, fill out my different kind of inputs to this. All right, and once I've submitted this, just want to highlight that if I go back to my, so we'll go back to our review, you'll see kind of this is where we've gotten one assessment kind of filled out. All right, I can see that out of our 2, we got 1 filled out. I can see some of the results of those kind of summarized at this point, some of the details. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But let me also go in and do this as the individual EIA user. So I'll just impersonate EIA viewer. I should also highlight here, this is, they could basically run this as part of the review workspace, right, to go do that as I did before, or you'll also see that this is using the standard native functionality of assessments and surveys. So this is also can be filled out directly in here. Right, so they can kind of do the same thing, fill in their scores, and submit. And so once the reviews have been, or assessments have fully been completed, then it's going to go out and start running the rules against these. The rules themselves have been configured to where they look at both, again, the feedback that we get from the assessments, as well as the information compiled from these metrics, to both basically provide recommendations on here are the various things that you could improve upon, right? Both from either an assessed process maturity perspective or findings in terms of, hey, these different ratios, these different benchmarks are below some of the expected thresholds. So just to show little details on these reviews, right, I mentioned all the different metrics that are associated with this will show kind of their scores here. Also, our different assessment questions will show up here. Anything that shows below the CMI maturity level of 3, which will also have some definitions here of what 0 versus a 1 versus a 2 versus a 3, 4, and 5 are. If they're below a 3, there's also some additional information that's kind of highlighting what the impact is of not being at this given assessed level of maturity. And also, if just to highlight, if you have questions, you want Evergreen to be involved in looking at your particular review, provide some additional recommendations on kind of how to improve some of these areas. You'll notice there's kind of a highlighted option here to share with Evergreen. And what this is going to do is basically take that information that's been compiled and pass it over to us as in the form of a PDF that we can then review, and then we'll hold a call with you to discuss that in more detail. As far as the PDFs go, the way these look, just to kind of highlight the same information you'll find on the actual kind of workspace of the review is highlighted here. The number of assessments that are provided, the number of overall assessment score per process area, the different process control areas of the process, kind of based off of their CMMI assessed score, right? And then also in here, the kind of ones that were assessed the lowest and their business impact were kind of listed first in here as those different assessment areas, and then any of the different individual kind of metrics, their scores, and then the summary of findings and kind of those details of those findings are outlined in this PDF document. As far as trends go, you will see some information here, right? So if you're running these reviews regularly, anything that's kind of ITIL maturity related, it's going to kind of get bulked together. So you'll see kind of here, basically just by running this review, it included the ones that we've done previously in previous months, right? Included those. I can exclude certain items if I don't want them included in my metrics. But ultimately, it's going to give me kind of a findings trend of how many findings we've had per these assessments, but also kind of how our assessment score may have changed from kind of review to review, or if you did this regularly in terms of, say, every quarter, kind of quarter to quarter, year to year, and kind of percentage change from one to the next. So that covers kind of the ITIL maturity assessment use case. I hope this was useful for you all in terms of being able to look at some general guidance in terms of both assessing through various questions, but also assessing through the metrics and the combination of the two to highlight some of the things that maybe could be worked on to improve, in this case, incident management process area. Hope this was helpful. Thank you.